Okay, and welcome back to another episode, another lesson in our Adobe XD course. Now, this is our third lesson, and we're going to do a whole lot of things here. Today, in this tutorial, in this lesson, we're going to talk about shapes. All right, shapes in Adobe XD or in UI designing. So, as we do always, we are going to create our project. All right. So this time around, I'm not going to select phone. You can select any of them, but I want to select a custom shape. I want to show how you can create your custom shape. So I'm going to create a custom shape with a width of it's in pixels, so I'm going to create the width of 1000 pixels. Okay, 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels, 1080 by 1080, which probably is going to be a square like kind of something. So I'm going to create that using my custom size. So I've set that size 1080 by 1080, and that is what I'm going to have as my artboard. All right. So the project will come with a size of 1080 by 1080. So you can see that it has default preset name. There's no actually a name on it, so we can actually rename it. All right, rename it to our custom shape. So this is custom shape. You can set it to custom my shape or my custom size, anything like that. So we have this square artboard that we're going to use. All right, so we're talking about shapes now. Shapes are a very important part of our designing, and they are core concept. We have different shapes right here. We have the shape of a rectangle, which we can also use for a square. We have the ellipse we can use for ovals and circles. We have the triangle here, that is the polygon we can use for triangle, pentagon, hexagon, octagon, nonagon, heptagon, any kind of angle with any number of sizes we can create with this polygon. You can use to draw any kind of shape that you want, your custom shape that you want. So that's what we are going to talk about in this lesson. So we're starting with the rectangle tool, which I said we can use to draw both square and a rectangle of different dimensions, whether in diagonal way, in vertical, in horizontal, in whichever way you want your rectangle to stand. You can use that rectangle shape to do that, and the shortcut for that is R. Okay, when you click on the R on the keyboard, it's going to select the rectangle tool, and the evidence of its selection is that you see that once you select any shape or any tool, the color will change from black. Already the color is black, so when you select it, the color will change from black to blue. That is the evidence that the tool has been selected. So by typing R or clicking on the R on the keyboard, you can select that one. You can also use the mouse to select it as well. Now we can move on to creating our rectangle in whatever way we want to. So I'll just drag and I'll hold the left key on the mouse, and then I'll drag along to create my shape. Now this is a rectangle. This is how we draw a rectangle, and after that you need to transform if you are not going to draw any other rectangle again. If you're going to draw any other rectangle again, you can continue by doing so. Drawing that rectangle. And you can continue to do. Now this is another thing that I want you to take notice of. If you want to draw a square, all right, whilst you are dragging it, you must hold down the shift key on the keyboard, and it is going to draw a perfect square for you that has square has almost it has all the sizes being equal, and so you need to hold down the shift key to give that equal portion of sizes. All right, when you are done, you can just click on the V key to select the move tool. All right, okay, now these are what we have on the artboard. We have different shapes. You have the rectangle in horizontal dimension, rectangle here on the vertical dimension, and then we have a square. These are the various things we can use the rectangle for, and we're going to take our time to go through the properties of these rectangles that we have drawn on the screen. So I'm going to zoom into the first one and show you what we can do with it. So I'm going to draw a zoom around it to have this one right here. So good. Now this is what we have, our custom rectangle right here on top. What can we do with this rectangle that we have drawn? Now when we go to the component area, it is showing us the dimension of the rectangle we have done, that is the size. So we have the size of the width 718 matching up to the height of 263 in pixels. All right, so the width is 718 pixels and then 263 pixels in height. What it means is we can as well increase or decrease the size from this. So we can say here that it should be 500 pixels. We hit enter and you can see the transformation taking place. Okay, we can increase it as well right here and it will take effect from here. That is the most beautiful part of it. We can resize them using these procedures. So like say 250 and then by 650 we would have this rectangle here. You can select the size and we have the position, and this is the position of the rectangle on the artboard. So on the x-axis it is lifted, or it is placed or positioned from the x-axis, that is 96 pixels away from the edge of the artboard. So you can see that whilst I'm moving it closer, you can see the increment from the x-axis, and the x-axis is the horizontal cross section of the artboard. So if I do it, I set this one to 0, I suppose that is going to be attached to the edge of the artboard. So if I hit enter, you see that it has moved all the way to the edge, to the very edge of the artboard. That is on the x-axis, the position it is taking from. So you can see that is the margin. All right, we are adding to this. You can have, so similarly to that one, we can set our size from that angle. And this is the Y. The Y position is also from the top of the designing of the artboard, from the top of the artboard. So when we set it to 0, it moves all the way to that angle. All right, so yes, so we can have equal precisions or equal positions, margins around our rectangle or our element. On the next one is the rotation degree. Whilst we have this to be a horizontal dimension, we can as well set the degree of rotation, be it 15 degrees, where you see it in clockwise movement, okay, clockwise rotation. We can have an anti-clockwise rotation by typing first the negative and then to that angle. So a negative 15 degrees will set it to an anti-clockwise rotation of 15 degrees, and a positive one, so you can see that it moves in that clockwise position. But You can as well set the negative clockwise position, rotation, where it's going to rotate backwards. You can set to whatever you want to create the rotation on. Alright, we'll set it to 0 at the moment. Good. We also talked about, we know about the flip, rotate, and since this is a rectangle and has a parallel position, a parallel angles, you don't see the flipping. All right, but we'll get to rectangles, the triangles and other custom shapes, then you see how the rotation, the flipping works. Okay, we can as well increase either size, okay, by the horizontal or the vertical scroll. Okay. And let's skip this point. It has to do with the layout of our artboard. We'll come back to it when we are building a fully functional UI. Now here on the appearance, we set the colors, we set the borders, we set the size of the borders and how they appear. So to start from the top, we already have a white color filled inside our rectangle, but we can set the opacity, that is the transparency of our layout. So you can see that though we have something there, but it's not showing because we have reduced the opacity. All right, so we can increase the opacity, that is the transparency of our layout, our layer or element. We also have a blend mode, which we talk about when we add some colors to it. All right, and here we're talking about the radius for the element. So we have this side being the layout, the radius for all the corners, and this one for individual corners. So each of the corners could have a different radius. So on all the radius, we can set all the radius to be 50 pixels, and all the radius, the edges will be curved to 50 pixels. We can as well use these controls to control all the radius as well. Okay, these controls are built in this already. You can use it to set the radius or control the radius, and you can see that as I'm moving, you can see that the size in pixels is also changing at the property area. So this is what we can do with the controls, and then this side. And so we can also set for individual radius. Okay, so for instance, we can set this one to be 50, that is the top left, to be 50. We have the top right here, so this one is the top left, top right, down left, and down right. So you can set this one to be 70. You can see that has affected this area, that is the top right. We have the bottom left, you can set to 90, bottom left, now bottom right, sorry, bottom right, bottom right corner, you can set it to 20, and then the bottom left here, you can set it to 0. So you can actually resize them according to how you want it. In order to also do this with the controls, you may have to hold down the Alt key in order to set one particular size to with the radius you want to. Alright, so you can have all these size being 0. Let's reset all of them to 0. Okay, let's set all of them to, now all of them are 0. You don't want to use this area. What you can do is to use the control to control it, but this time around you have to hold down the Alt key on the keyboard in order to drag only one side. If you leave it, it's going to drag all the sizes. So you hold down the Alt key in order to drag one side of the layer or the element that you are doing. So you can do this. Okay, this is how you can apply some radius to your rectangle. Now let's come to the fill. Now this fill has to do with the colors. Now already you can see that it is checked, means there is a color existing in that layer. You can leave it to blank or you can check on it. Let's check on it too, so we can change the colors. Here in the fill color, we can select in two ways how we can fill the colors. Either to pick it from the color eyedropper or to click here to open the color swatch, which is going to we can drag to select the color that we want to fill with. Okay, and as we move along, there is a hexadecimal representation of the colors we are using right here in the bottom. So if you know the color code, you can just apply the color code right here and then it will select for us. When we reach colors, I'm going to tell you how we can get some color codes and then apply. Good. And then we also have to talk about the borders. Now by default, the shape has borders, which color is set to this dark gray color. We can as well change these colors of our of the border. Okay, now you can see a slight line around it. Now we want it to be quite to be a bit visible, so we can increase the size of our border, which we also call the stroke. So let's say 20. When we set to 20, you can see that it is now taking effect. You can now see it quite well. And we can set it in as a dash, okay, where you have broken lines around it. So we can say 5 pixel dashed, and you can see that it is now changed to what broken lines. So we can have like this. So if you want to have a broken line as your edge, as your border or stroke, you can apply the dash here, and you can increase the gap in between them. So if I say this, the gap in between them will be 10 pixels each. We can as well set the curvature. Okay, this one will be on the outer. Apply some shadows, either inner or outer. So we can have a inner shadow and then also have an outer shadow. Okay, where we can set the dimension. So if on the X value, you can set maybe 50. You can see the shadow that has appeared. On the Y value, you can set to 30. Okay, good. And then we can set the blur to a particular amount. Okay, so this is what we can do when you want to apply some shadows on it. It will be more professional when we start, but this is how we use them. And bear in mind that all these functionalities are necessary, okay, for a good UI or a good design, and they all affect each of the shapes. So we are not going to go much into details on the other shapes. All these functionalities, all these properties are the same with the other shapes. So you can use this whole thing to apply to the other shapes, whether circle, whether polygons or whatever. You can still use this to apply to them. So for instance, I have an ellipse. I can create a circle right here. Okay, can create a circle right here and still add colors to it. Okay, still add border colors to it, increase the border like that. So whatever I have here, I can as well apply them to this. Now in our next video, I'm going to take you through some basic things that we can do with our shapes. Okay, we're still going to work on shapes, just going to combine some shapes to create some designs that you may want or you may like. So I'm going to combine some shapes, one or two shapes. It's not only that we have to use one shape for one thing, we can actually combine multiple shapes to create one element which is going to be useful for our design. So in our next video, I'm going to work on that. So stick to this, subscribe if you have not done so, and then we'll come back to our design.